Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a plea from people who lost family during the pandemic. Relatives say they've had no information from the prosecutors investigating thousands of COVID deaths here.
People were told that their loved one's death would be investigated by the Crown, and now there seems to be a wall of silence for many of these families.
Also tonight, a warning from the victim of an online romance scam.
They don't have any empathy at all, these people, and it's their job, and they are very, very good at it.
This woman was conned out of £17,000 in a deepfake video hoax. After a 6-year delay, the first of the 2 ferries built for CalMac's Arran service will carry her first passengers next month.
Coming up in the sport, we look ahead to a busy Premiership weekend, which starts tonight for Motherwell and Kilmarnock. And Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers has been discussing his plans for the January transfer window.
And the big Christmas getaway with weather and travel warnings for those making long journeys over the festive season. Hello, I'm Sally Magnuson. Welcome to Friday's programme. At the height of the pandemic, a special unit was formed to investigate whether any criminal charges should be brought over the thousands who died here from COVID. 4 years later, the team of prosecutors are still looking into more than 4,000 deaths, mostly in care homes. But not a single case has come to court. People who lost loved ones are now urging the Crown Office to lift what they call a shroud of mystery. Andrew Picken reports.
As concern grows about the spread of coronavirus in care homes, we find out about a significant outbreak in a home on Skye.
12 residents died at the Home Farm nursing home in Portree during the first wave of the pandemic. John Angus Gordon was one of them. John's death is among thousands covered by a Crown Office investigation first announced in 2020. His son John Gordon is still waiting for answers over the death of his dad.
At the beginning, people were told that their loved one's death would be investigated by the Crown, and now there seems to be a wall of silence for many of these families.
Home Farm was taken into public ownership after a string of COVID-related deaths which are subject to an ongoing criminal investigation.
Time goes on, you're kind of left in limbo. You're still waiting for answers because, I suppose the question has to be asked, where are things in terms of Police Scotland and the Crown?
Please come in.
There are 2 ongoing public inquiries into what happened during the COVID pandemic, and they've heard some emotive evidence of its impact.
So she died on her own. The one thing we never ever wanted for her.
Prosecutors here at the Crown Office will decide if some of the COVID deaths will be subject to fatal accident inquiries or potentially criminal charges. How long it's taken to reach those decisions is causing a growing sense of frustration for families.
That it is 4 years down the line and they do want a resolution of some sort. They want answers because at the moment there's a bit of a shroud of mystery, and it's the ongoing not knowing that makes it more difficult and really frustrating for them. We understand that an investigation is ongoing, but having absolutely no timescale, even if our families could be told it will be a year or 2 years, at least we can manage their expectations.
The Crown Office said this is the single largest investigation of deaths in Scottish history, and added, "We recognise that it must be difficult for the families of those who've lost a loved one. There are complex issues raised in both individual cases and across groups of cases which have been reported." The COVID deaths investigation has cost £11 million so far, and it remains unclear when it will conclude. Andrew Picken, Reporting Scotland.
The Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry says it will commission an independent review of its engagement with an abuse survivor who asked for his name to be removed from official transcripts. It follows the disappearance of Kevin Sutherland and a search involving police and the RNLI lifeboat at Queensferry. Stephen Godden has more.
Kevin Sutherland spent time in various care facilities across central Scotland into his teens. It was an experience he described as hell when he gave evidence to the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry in 2022. Now, he gave that evidence having waived his right to anonymity, but in recent months he's been in touch with the inquiry in an attempt to have his name removed from the publicly available transcripts. Now, a survivors group that he'd been in touch with about those efforts say that in recent days he'd been told that the inquiry's position on his anonymity would not be reversed. It was a decision that the 33-year-old himself referenced in a late-night social media post on Thursday that he said was his final announcement. It was that social media post that sparked the emergency response that followed. Now, in a statement, a spokesperson for the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry said that it had been made aware of a possible tragic incident and that our thoughts are with all of those who are affected. In the interests of transparency, it continued, the inquiry will commission an independent review as soon as possible to consider all aspects of its interactions with the individual. The police, meanwhile, say that searches of an area of the River Forth are ongoing following reports of concern for a man. Stephen Godden, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
A 23-year-old man has appeared in court charged with smuggling 14 Albanian nationals into Scotland in a livestock lorry. Patrick McKinney from County Armagh in Northern Ireland was arrested on the 11th of December at the Loch Ryan ferry terminal at Cairnryan. He's been charged with 14 counts under Section 25 of the Immigration Act and 1 count of culpable and reckless conduct to danger of life. He made no plea and was remanded in custody. Believe nothing. That's the warning from a woman who was scammed out of £17,000 in an elaborate online romance hoax. As part of the fraud, 77-year-old Nikki McLeod was sent video messages, which she now believes are fake, that convinced her the person she was speaking to was real. Experts say the advent of AI is making it easier for scammers to fool their victims and even use innocent people's identities. So it's important to say that at the start of this report, you'll see the video of a woman, and there's no way of knowing where the image of this woman came from. It could be the face of a real person with no connection to the scammers and no idea that her identity was used. Our science and innovation correspondent, Laura Goodwin, has more.
Good morning, Nikki. Hope you had a wonderful night. You know the reason of sending you this video to you? Because I want to prove myself to you and hope this video proves you wrong with all the negative thoughts.
This is the woman Nikki McLeod believed she was in a relationship with.
A few weeks later, I was a bit sceptical again. She sent me another video, also on the oil rig with bad weather in the background. It was clearly on somewhere out in the middle of an ocean somewhere. Also incredibly convincing with my name on it. So I was completely convinced that she was a real person.
Well, Nikki, it's Ala Morgan. I wanted to reach out to reassure you that I am sincere and have no connection to any scams.
But it was a scam, and one in which Nikki was persuaded to send £17,000 to the person she knows as Ala Morgan. But who is the woman in these videos? It's likely an innocent person's face is being used by the scammers without her knowledge. Dr. Lindsay Shepherd is an expert in romance scams and the technology now being used. We showed her the videos sent to Nikki.
At first glance, it looks legitimate. If you don't know what to look for, you're going to think it's all right. But if you look at the eyes, the eye movements aren't quite right. There's a number of apps out there, like even something as simple as a face swap app, a filter. You can sometimes see when people are talking. If you look around the jawline, the filter kind of slips a bit. It's relatively straightforward to do.
The way this was explained was that they're on an oil rig and therefore couldn't have a live call.
Yeah, so that's quite a typical thing that comes up in romance scams. So it's a case of the scammer is in a location where they can't easily meet face to face. So oil rig is one of the common ones, in the military on a mission on a base. And then typically, they build up that relationship and then say, oh, there's been an emergency, I need some money for travel. And that's when they extract the money from the victim.
It actually isn't difficult to make a video using someone else's face. I've downloaded some software and I've asked permission to use someone else's image. And this is the result. I can become someone else entirely.
Nikki's bank and PayPal were able to recoup some of the money sent, but funds Nikki transferred on PayPal using the friends and family function aren't covered by their buyer protection programme. And the scammers are still contacting Nikki, now posing as lawyers, claiming Ala Morgan is in a Turkish jail and needs money. Police Scotland say inquiries are ongoing. Nikki now knows none of this was real and that she's been the victim of a cruel and elaborate scam. She hopes others will heed her warning.
They don't have any empathy at all, these people, and it's their job, and they are very, very good at it. And with the introduction of artificial intelligence, every single thing can be fake.
Nikki McLeod there talking to our science and innovation correspondent Laura Goodwin. The first of the long-delayed ferries built for CalMac's Arran service will carry her first passengers next month. CalMac says the Glen Sannox will enter service on January the 13th. Should have been ready 6 years ago. Since then, costs have increased from £97 million to more than £400 million. Our news correspondent Jamie McIver reports from the Clyde coast, where the new ferry was at sea today.
There's rarely been such interest in a new Clyde passenger ferry coming into service, but today islanders in Arran finally got the news they've been waiting years for. The Glen Sannox will officially enter passenger service 3 weeks on Monday, sailing between Troon and Brodick. For the past few months she's been undergoing sea trials, and the crew more recently have been becoming familiar with the vessel. Now this is a vessel which was launched by Nicola Sturgeon some 7 years ago, even though it turned out she was nowhere near ready then. The construction at Ferguson Marine in Port Glasgow proved problematic, with challenges around the design. The vessel ended up some 4 times over budget, and of course it's been the subject of a huge political controversy. Now CalMac is confident that passengers will like the new vessel, but the fact it will have to sail from Troon rather than Ardrossan for the time being at least has frustrated some in Arran, and that's because Ardrossan Harbour needs a major upgrade, and the sailing between Troon and Brodick is longer than the run between Ardrossan and Brodick, and the train connections aren't so good for foot passengers. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland.
The antibiotics known as fluoroquinolones can be life-saving against specific infections, and serious side effects are not common. But in January, doctors were told by the UK medicines regulator, the MHRA, that they should only prescribe the drugs in limited circumstances because of rare cases of severe reactions. Here, their use has decreased by almost a fifth since 2019, but a leading expert says doctors are still over-prescribing these antibiotics. Emma Clifford-Bell reports.
John used to run regularly, but that suddenly stopped when he was prescribed fluoroquinolone antibiotics to treat a serious infection. He had a severe reaction usually considered rare, but for John, it was life-changing.
Every joint, fingers, elbows, toes, ankles, everything was sore.
John says his GP told him the pain would pass and gave him another type of fluoroquinolone, but things then got worse and he woke up one day with a ruptured bicep tendon.
How it snapped, I'd done nothing, I hadn't moved, I hadn't lifted anything, I hadn't been working, I hadn't been exercising. I just got up one morning with a very painful shoulder.
Ciprofloxacin, delafloxacin, levofloxacin, moxifloxacin and ofloxacin are all classed as fluoroquinolones. In January this year, the medicines regulator warned they should only be used in limited circumstances. That's because of links to rare but occasionally severe and irreversible side effects. In Scotland, around 1 in 40 antibiotics used last year were fluoroquinolones. But this expert says they're still being over-prescribed.
In certain circumstances, this drug will save your life. I think the problem with this drug is it's being prescribed in a sort of wide fashion because of guidelines that are outdated for urinary tract infections, for prophylaxis, and I think that hasn't quite filtered wholly into the medical community as a whole.
Professor Miller wants more medics to get the message. They have a responsibility to limit the use of these antibiotics. Healthcare Improvement Scotland says it recognises that serious side effects may rarely occur.
It's essential that for each patient the risks and benefits of fluoroquinolones should be carefully considered and balanced against the potential risks and benefits of alternative therapies.
The MHRA says it continuously monitors the safety of all medicines.
We advise that anyone who has concerns about suspected side effects relating to fluoroquinolone antibiotics should talk to the doctor and report it via our yellow card scheme.
John now has a fluoroquinolone-associated disability diagnosis, something that campaigners call being floxed. 7 years after taking the pills, he still lives with chronic pain.
I wake up basically every night, spasms across my tendons in my knees. I hate the term that I'm disabled because I still feel I'm going to get better, because people can get better from this.
Emma Clifford-Bell, reporting Scotland.
A man who was swept out in the North Sea has thanked the rescue teams who saved his life. 58-year-old Chris Pike was swimming off Macduff on Tuesday morning when he got into difficulty. He was rescued by a lifeboat before being airlifted to Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. Chris expresses appreciation to those who came to his aid and hopes to raise awareness about water safety.
My legs effectively stopped working. I couldn't put any power through them. And then within the next few minutes, I was just dragging them. So I remember going under twice, once for a significant amount of time. I realised at that point that I was most likely going to die.
Now, this weekend we'll see thousands of people travelling home for Christmas. This means roads and railways will be busier than usual. With a stormy weather forecast for the weekend to contend with as well, people are being urged to check their journeys and be prepared. Our reporter Gillian Sharp has more.
Getting in the festive spirit at Glasgow Airport today. They're expecting a busy weekend.
Our third son is about to arrive, and we're going to pick him up so we can spend Christmas together in Scotland. Perfect weather for it, right?
It's one of the main times where I can take holidays from my job, so I've travelled quite a lot. It is busy, but it doesn't bother me.
So we've got our new grandchild who was born the 2nd December. We haven't met her yet, so we're going down and spending Christmas with her, which is looking forward to that.
For the last 30 years I've worked with Royal Mail, and I can never get away at Christmas, and this year I'm not, so we're going.
Between today and Monday, more than 76,000 passengers are expected in and out of Glasgow Airport. Popular destinations include Malaga, Tenerife, Paris and London. And roads too are expected to be busier than normal. This is where they monitor the trunk road network for any issues. Travellers are being urged to plan ahead.
Make sure they're aware of any weather impacts that might be affecting their travel. Check in with our travel operator, whether it's air, sea, bus or rail, and make sure that if there's any disruption in those transport modes or cancellations or delays, to be aware of that and make sure they have the plans and preparations in place to be able to respond to that.
The impact of bad weather earlier in the year. For those trying to get home by ferry this weekend, Calmac, the operator, says the weather could mean significant disruption with delays or cancellations. And on the railways too, lots of people will be moving around over the next few days with any possible impact from the weather not clear.
The advice is always check before you travel. We don't expect too much disruption as a result of the weather, but there could be in some of the more rural areas some extended journey times. And services will be busier because it's the last weekend before Christmas, but that's why we've got extra late night services and more carriages throughout the weekend so that we can get people to where they need to be on this final weekend before Christmas.
And with just 5 days to go, however you're getting around this festive season, the travel picture is busy. Gillian Sharp, BBC News.
Oh, here's hoping for your ferry.
I know, absolutely, Sally. Fingers crossed for that.
Right, what you got for us tonight?
Well, it's approaching the end of the year. The festive time of year always brings some rumours, Sally, some transfer rumours, so we're going to start there tonight. Thanks very much. Although, yes, Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers stayed tight-lipped over any potential move for Kieran Tierney as he discussed his plans for the January transfer window. The Scotland defender is out of contract at Arsenal this summer and is free to speak to clubs outside England in January. Rodgers, who revealed he had talks with major shareholder Dermot Desmond about signings in Dublin this week, said Tierney was an instrumental part of his earlier success at the club, but that he would only talk about a player once he's signed. Well, it's been the main talking point all week, but today Rangers manager Philippe Clement says all of Europe has been discussing the decision not to award his side a penalty in their League Cup final defeat by Celtic. The Ibrox boss insists the moment was a bad advertisement for the Scottish game, but praised the transparency from head of referees Willie Collum. The Belgian also said his players do not need motivation out of negativity as they aim to move on when they face Dundee on Sunday.
Not only for Rangers or for every team losing a game like that, but it's also for Scottish football really bad advertisement. And all of Europe have been talking about that, about what happened in this final. And that's a pity because it was two good teams playing a good game of football with everything that every fan wants into a game. And there's been much more talks about the game decisive moment in that way. So that's a pity for Scottish football.
Well, the Premiership weekend starts with an enticing Friday night fixture. Motherwell hosting Kilmarnock. Martin Dowden is at Fir Park for us.
The Premiership returns here at Fir Park tonight. It's Motherwell v Kilmarnock. Motherwell in the lofty position of 4th place after back-to-back wins in the league. That follows 3 consecutive defeats and shows you the value of getting consecutive wins in this table. Kilmarnock themselves off the back of a really strong performance against Hearts and win down to 10 men very, very early in that game, and they know the value of backing that up with a win here tonight. That could propel them up towards the middle of that table as they've been languishing down near that bottom after a fairly frustrating campaign so far. You can follow all the action live on Sportsound, on BBC Sounds and online.
Well, Hearts were left licking their wounds last night after a late Petrocub penalty ended their interest in the UEFA Conference.
It's natural to feel a certain way when you're not producing the results that we want. That's human nature. You know, if we're winning games and scoring goals and everyone's will do, then you'll be better for it.
A mere point separates Hearts at the bottom from their opponents on Sunday, St Johnstone. They surrendered a 2-1 lead last time out as St Mirren snatched a dramatic late victory from the penalty spot with virtually the last kick of the game. But manager of the Perth side, Simo Valakari, isn't casting the blame elsewhere for the club's lowly position.
We have put ourselves to this position, and only us, we can take us out of that position as well. So we see the opportunities. Are we happy, satisfied to be in this position? No, of course not. But we are there, so that's where there's no hiding, there is no fear, there is no drama. We need to face it, we need to go there, we need to play, and then we see where we are.
Rugby now, in Glasgow Warriors host Edinburgh at Hampden rather than Scotstoun on Sunday as the league champions seek to make the most of playing in front of a crowd of more than 25,000 in the first leg of the 1872 Cup. The head coaches of both clubs acknowledge the importance of winning derby matches, but they point to other benefits that come from putting one over on your rivals at this time of year.
Whichever team in this part of the season plays really well usually reap the rewards later on. So regardless of the fact that it's derbies, I think we must continue to play well. I think the whole team has contributed in the last 4 weeks. So I'm excited to say that also this group going into the two derbies are eager to contribute and eager to be the best version of themselves.
You can look at the game in isolation and as the 1872 Cup game, but we like to look at it as a URC game, and definitely for us it's an opportunity to see how far we've grown over the last 3-4 months. We managed to put in some really good performances at home, but have struggled away. So Hampden just another opportunity for us to show that we can do better when we're away from Hive.
And if that's not enough sport for you, Sally, there's live championship football on tonight as well on the BBC, over on the BBC Scotland
There cannot be enough sport for me, Lewis.
There's never enough.
No, I have very important news to impart now, so
let's take a step back.
Stand back. I'm pleased to report, finally, that the Grinch has been arrested at a Glasgow nursery following a break-in earlier this month. Take a look at this. A real burglar, had smashed the glass door at the nursery in Carntine, but the staff, helped by local police officers, had a plan. There they are. The children were reminded that you can never really steal the spirit of Christmas. Now the weather with Christopher to spoil the spirit of Christmas for us all.
Oh, that's not fair. That's not fair, Sally. It's going to be very mild, actually, this Christmas. If you're hoping for snow, I'm afraid it's not coming. This weekend, though, could be spoiling things. Disruptive weather on the way, certainly for those travelling. Sally, thanks very much indeed. Good evening to you. Yes, we've had some decent spells of sunshine through the day today after that really wet start this morning. A number of showers around, those still with us initially this evening with some clear skies. And then overnight, the cloud thickens and the rain arrives. The winds begin to strengthen too. So at their lowest, temperatures 4 to 7 Celsius, but they tend to recover by dawn. But certainly the rain pushing in and the winds strengthening. And it will be a stormy weekend. We've got a deep area of low pressure situated to our north, bringing widespread gales and the risk of some disruption, certainly on the travel front. Now, there is a almost countrywide Met Office yellow warning for gusts of 55 to 65 miles an hour in the northwest, anything up to around 80. So certainly travel disruption on the ferries, maybe the roads and rails as well. Some big waves around the west coast, some overtopping, perhaps some power cuts in places and damage to buildings and trees. And aside from the wind, a number of squally showers rattling across the country tomorrow. So if you're out and about doing some last-minute Christmas shopping, I'm afraid it's not going to be very pleasant at all. And some of those showers bringing some hail and sleet to low levels, wintry on higher ground. Temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius, but the winds indicated by the black arrows there, they will be strong to gale force. Severe gales around the west coast, perhaps even storm force at times. Same too in the far north and the Northern Isles. And certainly in the hills and mountains, it's an extreme picture with winds across the highest tops in excess of 100 miles an hour. Dangerous conditions, in fact, with frequent showers, a mixture of rain, sleet and snow, poor visibility and a significant wind chill as well. Certainly not really a day for being in the hills, has to be said. Into tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, those showers still with us and actually the snow level coming down. So we could see some sleet and snow to relatively low levels overnight. There'll be some icy patches around. So once again, pretty poor conditions for anyone hoping to travel. The winds remain high. And Sunday is another windy day, another showery day. Those showers merging at times to longer spells of rain across parts of Highland and Grampian. Some brighter skies in between. And once again, it's windy, still severe gale force around the coast. And temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius at best are feeling cold. Next week it's quieter, it's calmer, it's milder. Wednesday's Christmas Day. Take a look at the temperatures, 12 or 13 Celsius. Bit of sunshine, a lot of cloud, some rain at times too. And certainly Christmas Eve, Christmas Day and Boxing Day on the mild side. Here's Wednesday, Christmas Day. Rain in the northwest, elsewhere cloudy. Spots of light rain or drizzle in the southwest. Best of the sunshine in the northeast, 13 degrees. Sally.
Thanks very much indeed, Chris. Graham Stewart will be here with your late news at around 10:30 tonight. But until then, from everyone in the team, do enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.